Hey guys, it's Alex and Dad from 7th Hour Films back again with modern Doctor Who.
What?
I say that like we do this often. Well, last time that we both reacted to modern Doctor Who, it was the 50th anniversary, the Day of the Doctor.
And that was about a year ago, wasn't it?
Year and a half, I think. I think that was early in 2020. In our classic reactions, the last one we just finished up was Terror of the Autons, which was a rewatch for us because we had already done it before in our tour of Classic Who. So now, because that episode is now no longer a tour of Classic Doctor Who, we're back to our tour of Modern Doctor Who, which is just something we keep doing.
Sure, why not?
Yeah, so previously, you have seen 4 full episodes and 1 mini-sode of Doctor Who. For the 9th Doctor, it was Series 1, Episode 6, Dalek. For the 10th Doctor, it was Series 4, Special 4. It was one of the specials, not necessarily in the season itself, but it was The Waters of Mars. The 11th Doctor was Series 6, Episode 4, The Doctor's Wife. Then you did The Night of the Doctor and The Day of the Doctor. So today, we're watching Mummy on the Orient Express, Series 8, Episode 8, which is the first season of the 12th Doctor. So, any thoughts going into this one?
I know nothing other than Peter Capaldi has a Scottish accent and very expressive eyebrows.
Yes. So, the interesting thing with Capaldi is he's, I almost want to say like a return to the classics, because, you know, before him you had 3 younger guys, and Capaldi, I think when he took the role he was about 55. I think he was the same age that Hartnell was actually when he took the role. So yeah, he's an older Doctor, but still very eccentric, still very crazy. For context on this episode, basically right now he is traveling with Clara, who you actually met in the 50th anniversary, and in the previous episode, which is entitled Kill the Moon, the Doctor and Clara had a bit of a disagreement. Things got pretty rocky, and for this episode, not to spoil too much of it, but basically going into this episode, they are sort of viewing this as her last adventure with the Doctor, and then she's going to retire. And whether or not that holds up, well, yeah. But that's just sort of the context for this episode. But yeah, I'm not sure what else to say, honestly, before we just jump right into this. So, you got anything else?
I got nothing. I seriously got nothing.
All right. Then, honestly, we might as well just jump right into this episode of Modern Doctor Who. Here we go.
What's that fellow over there, dressed as a mummy monster thing?
Who do you mean? I can't see him.
You!
Is there a doctor? Sorry, I need a doctor. Sorry, I don't know. She just stopped.
Oh, and by the way, this isn't that Orient Express, unfortunately.
I was going to say, Paris to Istanbul doesn't look like that at all.
Yeah, so
Completely faithful recreation of the original Orient Express, except slightly bigger and in space. Oh, and the rails are actually hyperspace ribbons, but in every other respect, identical. Painstaking attention to detail.
Like the girl from Superman and Lois,
Most
the
of the time.
editor of the newspaper.
yeah, it does.
You'll be able to see the soaring majesty of the Magellan Black Hole.
Oh, I remember when this was all planets as far as the eye could see.
I don't hate you. I could never hate you. But I can't do this anymore, not the way you do it.
Oh, was she a companion to Matt Smith?
Yeah, originally.
By the planets now.
Thedian IV was destroyed thousands of years ago, so you couldn't have been there.
Miss Pitt, are you sure you wouldn't rather rest in your room?
That man's a liar.
Perhaps you'd allow Mr. Carlyle here to escort you back.
I mean, she's not wrong. He is a liar. But he was also there.
What's wrong with her? Did something happen?
You mean you really don't know?
There's a body and there's a mummy. I mean, can you not just get on a train? Did a wizard put a curse on you about mini-grids?
Might be nothing. Old ladies die all the time. It's practically their job description.
And the monster?
Because you know what this sounds like, don't you? No. Do tell me. A mummy that only the victim can see. I was being rhetorical. I know exactly what this sounds like.
Pleased to meet you, Doctor. Of course, there's a rumour that someone or something else might be responsible.
I'd say that would be suspect number one, but we already saw a mummy.
You see, I happen to be Emile Moorhouse, Professor of Alien Mythology. I'm the Doctor. Pleased to meet you. So, the most interesting thing about the foretold? Go.
Well, it would have to be the time limit given before it kills you.
Some characters try to bargain with it. All for riches, confess sins, all to no avail.
Well, you said in a little mythology.
I know a lot. Because from time to time, it turns out to be true.
Well, you can't run from it, that's for sure. There are accounts of people trying, but it never works. No matter how far you run, it's always right there behind you.
I do like this idea of this mythological monster in space.
Do you know what you're doing? Nope. But I do need to be slightly more skilled than a high heel shoe.
That'd be me, if I was there. Just moving wires.
You didn't do anything wrong. They're difficult people. And they can make you feel all sorts of things. But you didn't do it. You didn't kill her. She just died.
Are you sure about that?
Sarcophagus.
Just on the train.
I'm your worst nightmare.
A mystery shopper. Oh, great.
Really? That's your worst? Look, I'm a mystery shopper. I could do with an extra pillow, and I'm very disappointed with your breakfast bar. And all of the dying.
This is not exactly what
You really shouldn't leave it up to chance what the psychic paper says.
We could do something to stop it. Why am I even talking to you?
I love the atmosphere. It's very dark and shadowy. And
Honestly, it works out that we're watching this in October. Very spooky.
Too quick.
It turns out it's 3. The amount of people that have to die before I stop looking the other way.
Thank you. Because what use are a bunch of scientists without a lab?
Teleporter?
No. Hard light holograms. They were never really here. It's fake.
Einstein?
just to make up the
Einstein.
numbers.
Space
That was
Einstein.
my best guard.
We don't even know what the species is. Perkins, start the clock.
Approximately 1.8 meters tall. Actually, seeing it in the flesh isn't nearly as rewarding as I thought it might be.
Oh dear, Hargees, look when you see details.
Yes, of course.
Tell us what you can see. Even the smallest detail might help us save the next one.
The next one? You mean you can't save me?
Well, that is implied, isn't it? Yes, this is probably the end for you. But make it count. Details, please.
Flesh. Some of it.
He's not a very comforting doctor.
Very ancient looking.
So, first things first, the sarcophagus is actually a secure stasis unit.
Yes, it's where they want us to put the foretold if we capture it.
Well, that would have been good to know.
Sorry, a teeny bit busy, my dear.
Please terminate your call and return to work.
I've got some progress reports. The Gloriana spent 3 days getting picked off by the foretold. All died. Performance marked as poor.
Warning!
Less valuable passengers. How does it choose?
Well, I'm assuming qualifications.
No, not the computer. The foretold.
I was gonna say it's interesting that they kept like the chefs and everything, but
Random. What if it's not?
I guess as
I want full
hostages.
histories on all the victims. Medical, social, personal.
Well done!
Don't mention it.
don't really hear much of his accent.
Nah.
It's picking off the weakest first. sensing the illness somehow. The fake organs, even psychological issues. But this is good news, because it means we can work out who is next. I want the medical records of everybody alive who is still on board. Which means that you are probably next. Which is good to know.
Well, not for me.
Well, of course not for you, because you're going to die. But I mean, for us, from a research point of view. Oh, no, that didn't work before.
What kind of soldier would I be, dying with bullets in my gun?
50 seconds.
The Brigadier would have liked this guy.
If only I could see this thing.
Don't even joke about that.
I'm not joking about it. 1 minute with me, and this thing, it won't be over.
You know, Doctor, I can't tell if you're a genius or just incredibly arrogant.
Well, on a good day.
Yes.
Tech that drains energy from the living. Scanner. Deep tissue scan. He's been leached of almost all energy on a cellular level. The heart attack is just a side effect.
It's not just a mummy, it's a vampire. Metaphorically speaking.
It takes them out of phase so it can drain their energy. You, sir, are a genius. This explains everything. Apart from what it is and how it's doing it. Sorry, I dropped the gun there with the you're a genius. That explains everything with a mark.
Doctor.
If it happens in there, it'll be a waste. So bring her to us.
How? How exactly? She's never going to agree to this.
Well, I don't know. Lie to her. Tell her I can save her. Whatever it takes to get her here.
What's he saying?
I love people in fiction that can't hear things that are clearly not going right over the phone.
Well, he has tried to entice me here before. Free tickets, mysterious summons. He even phoned the TARDIS one. You know how difficult
You knew this was no relaxing break. You knew this was dangerous.
I didn't know. I certainly hoped.
Read this. You see this.
Your trauma, your resentment. Now, it's mine.
It's gone.
I know. I'm so pleased to finally see you. I'm the doctor and I will be your victim this evening. Are you my mummy?
He's the only one to run right toward.
By the way, you weren't being paranoid. She really did poison your pony. Markings like the ones on the scroll. Oh, it's your father. Sorry. A tattered piece of cloth attached to lantern wood that you will kill for.
30
That
seconds.
doesn't sound like a scroll. That sounds like a flag. And if that
That's
sounds like a flag, it's
cuneiform.
a flag that means that you
That's Mesopotamia.
are a soldier.
Well,
Wounded and forgotten war thousands of years ago. And all that tape inside you, it just won't let you die. Will it? It won't let the war end. It just won't let you stop until the war is over. We surrender!
0.
I can see it again. It's okay.
The clock has stopped. You're a relieved soldier.
He's not the only one.
Well, Gus, I think we solved your little puzzle. Ancient soldier being driven by malfunctioning tech.
Thank you so much for your effort.
oh, and then it exploded. You know, that doesn't look comfortable.
Oh, hello again. Sleep well?
So you saved everyone.
No, I just saved you, and I let everyone else suffocate. Yeah, this is just my cover story.
So, when you lied to Maisie, when you made me
I
lie to
couldn't
Maisie,
risk
you...
Gus finding out my plan and stopping me.
So you were pretending to be heartless?
I didn't know if I could save her. I couldn't save Quail, I couldn't save Rawhouse. There was a good chance that she'd die too. At which point, I would have just moved on to the next. Sometimes the only choices you have are bad ones. But you still have to choose.
He's not heartless, he's heartlish.
I don't suppose you'd know of anyone.
No. Sorry, Doctor, but I don't think I do. That job could change a man.
Yes, it does. Frequently.
Do you love being the man making the impossible choice?
Why would I?
Because it's what you do. All day, every day.
It's my life.
Doesn't have to be. Is it like an addiction?
Well, you can't really tell if something's an addiction till you try and give it up.
And you never have.
Seriously?
Look, as long as you get me home safe and on time, everything is great. I am so sorry. I've had a wobble. It's a big wobble, but it's fine. Forget about it now. Shut up and give me some planets.
Well, I'm glad that you said that. Because you know that one that's made entirely of shrubs? Are you sure about that?
Are you? Have you ever been sure? And what are you waiting for? Let's go.
Alrighty. Well,
we didn't talk hardly at all.
Well, yeah, I mean, with the modern reactions, that does tend to happen.
Yeah.
But, I mean, in some of that, when they're going off on, will Clara stay or will she not, we'd probably talk more about that had we had the other 8 episodes of this season as context. So, you're not too familiar with Clara, or especially the previous episode where she ended up leaving. So that is Mummy on the Orient Express. What do you think?
Well, I mean, again, for context, interesting location, totally unnecessary to the plot. Could have been anywhere.
Yeah.
Could have been on the real Orient Express.
Yeah.
But again, you have that mix of the history of the Orient Express, the real train, Paris to Istanbul, going through so many different countries, so many different cultures. But then again, you've got the alien and the technology all thrown in.
Yeah.
And again, I don't want to say it's disconcerting, but I mean, I think you've told me that's kind of what you can expect from New Who, is they don't have any completely just historicals. There's always some, gobbledygook thrown in.
Yes. I will say, though, I mean, this one you wouldn't classify as a historical for modern Doctor Who, but there are more centered historical episodes where they are back in time, they are at this specific place. Yes, there's an alien, but for the most part, like if the Doctor goes to Pompeii, he is in Pompeii dealing with a Pompeian family and everything, and there also happens to be an alien that's like messing with Vesuvius and stuff like that. Whereas this one, when I kept bringing this up and I say, oh yeah, Mummy on the Orient Express, and you kept bringing up the actual Orient Express, I thought, I don't want to tell him, but it's not... you're right, it is sort of a strange setting for this. I will say, though, towards the end where he mentions that the computer, Gus, has tried to entice him to deal with this before, actually, at the end of Series 5, which was Matt Smith's first season, that's the cliffhanger, is he gets a call and he's like, oh, yes, I know, it's a big deal. There's a mummy on the Orient Express. Fine, I will go deal with that. And then the next episode is something completely different. So I don't know if they thought, well, maybe that'll just be an in-between story and, this is just a little thing we made up, or one of the writers or the showrunner, Stephen Moffat, was finally like, you know what, I want to do that story. I at least want someone to write that story.
Yeah.
So
is everything you've seen so far, does Gus come back any other time?
No, that's the strangest thing, is that they set up this whole thing, and I don't think, unless they reference something else, because this season, the villain that is in the finale is the Master, and she brings up the Cybermen and everything, but I don't think there's ever a line or anything where it's like, oh, she created Gus or something like that. So
I mean, interesting episode. I enjoyed it, especially the production values are so much better than anything that we've seen up through what now 7, starting 8 seasons in Classic Who. And again, Peter Capaldi is great, and Clara is great, and it's good, But again, I literally didn't say anything during it because I was too caught up into trying to figure out where the story was going that I didn't want to say is the whole thing a hologram?
Yeah.
Why does it have to be in space? It's just I enjoyed it, but it's kind of like cotton candy. It's enjoyable, but you put it in your mouth and it disappears. It's like
Well, and the reason, because for this and the next episode, when we originally did the modern episodes, those were specifically chosen by the schedule maker I had back then, and they specifically chose those episodes, I think, to sort of build up to the 50th anniversary. Yeah. So you get a lot with the Ninth Doctor and the Time War, the 10th Doctor's character and how he tries to break the laws of time by saving the people on Mars. And then the Doctor's wife is just a great episode between the Doctor and the TARDIS itself. This episode I specifically chose, and mainly because I asked around okay, what would be a great introductory episode, and we settled on this one for the 12th Doctor, mainly for his character specifically, how he differs from the previous Doctors. Whereas, yes, there is a lot going on with the Foretold and all these other, colorful characters on the Orient Express, and then there's stuff from previous episodes with Clara, but I thought this would be a good episode just to get his character. Now, the interesting thing is, of all the Doctors, at least the ones I've seen in their entirety, I think the 12th Doctor has the most character growth and character change. Whereas they all do sort of have that to their own extent. The 12th Doctor starts off sort of as this grumpy old man, very much different from Matt Smith. And then he grows, he gets a little softer, he opens up a bit more. Then he starts getting a little goofier, and then while, yes, he's not completely just a goofball like the previous ones, he is just a bit more stoic, yet he has his kinder moments. But this was more in line with how you first meet him. So
now the not the engineer, but the guy that we saw there at the end, who was basically the fix-it man. Yeah. So obviously he's not just a fix-it man. He's obviously a guy who knows, obviously, computers and regular other machines and all this other stuff. But, he's dressed like the engineer, which, at no point did I remember the Doctor saying anything about, you seem to know a whole lot more than the way you're dressed. Everybody else on this train seems to be a specific type. But, and he says there at the end, it's obvious that you should come with me because you know a lot about this machine and you could help me fix it.
Yeah. I mean, they do kind of say that he's sort of the chief engineer of the Orient Express. And I guess it's just that, yes, to sort of match the aesthetic of this train that's flying around in space, which is ridiculous looking, but still, that's the aesthetic they chose. So to match that, their engineer, their train conductor, basically has to, sort of play the part. He's got the overalls and the hat and everything. Yeah. But immediately it's like, yeah, this isn't the, the all shucks guy that puts the coal in the fire. This guy does know about computers, which is honestly a good start to okay, this guy, he seems like more than you would think.
And how does, if he knows that much about the train, how does he not know about Gus?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the thing, is that I guess what they mentioned, I don't think I caught this the first time around, that I guess Gus sort of downloads himself onto specific ships, because Clara and Maisie were going through things of these ships have tried to deal with the Foretold, everyone ended up dying instead. So I guess it's just that Gus just sort of gets onto these ships and brings the Foretold using the flag. So
now, one of the ships that they talked about, though, they said only 4 people died, performance satisfactory or something like that. How did they stop it? And see,
that's a good point. I don't remember that, but yeah, performance satisfactory. Maybe they started to find something, but the only thing I could think is if maybe some of those people were on the Orient Express, but then you would think they would remember that and say something. Yeah. So,
well, let's see what you wrote down.
So the first thing that I got, was when Maisie called the Doctor a liar. When he was like, "Oh yes, I was there 1,000 years ago" or something, and she's calling him out because she doesn't know that he is a time travel, and also he's thousands of years old at this point. But I did like that moment because it's like, yes, he is a liar, but you never really know when he actually is lying, which is just something I like. Yeah. And I like him, really wanting to talk about all the different planets and stuff. And it's like, oh, this place used to be filled with planets back in the day. Well, they're gone now.
It's urban renewal.
Yeah, so...
Galactic renewal. Very much the Vogons from Douglas Adams.
Oh, yeah. So, and the next thing I wrote down was just the foretold. So, what did you think of the mystery? You said that, you didn't say much because you were trying to figure it out, like, is it a hologram or something? So, yeah. What did you think about that?
Well, of course, first of all, never heard of the foretold. I mean, studied Egyptian history.
Yeah.
But now, they did, the idea that it was draining their energy, that was definitely in the Brendan Fraser movies, that he was taking their life force to renew himself. But again, who put the technology in him? Why did they put the technology in this specific soldier?
Yeah.
And so it's just, it all makes sense, but it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So it's, all the parts seem to fit, but when you look at the overall arc of his story, it's like, but why?
Yeah.
I mean, and again, don't want to keep harping on the Brendan Fraser thing, but, the mummy wanted to come back because he needed to revive the woman that he loved.
Yeah.
And they managed to do that through 2 films very successfully. But there was no backstory for this guy. He's literally an unknown soldier, kept alive almost accidentally, doesn't want to be there, we assume, but has to do it. So it's
from what I can gather, with the reveal that at the end that he's a soldier, is that for some reason, because I don't really know where exactly he's from. They say it's like, all right, he's from like 5,000 years ago, but they do say that this is an Earth legend with the foretold. So presumably that means the Orient Express isn't that far into the future for Earth. So somehow this soldier got this, tech basically that keeps him alive, but I guess for him, like, the war never ended. And so he's basically stuck with his own flag, and he goes and he picks off basically everyone is now an enemy to him. So he picks off, the weakest first, and it's not until the Doctor figures out that he's a soldier that he finally surrenders. War's over, he can leave. But the whole purpose was that they were supposed to actually capture him so that Gus, or whoever created Gus, could then use his abilities and probably spread foretold all these ghost mummies across the galaxy and stuff.
And again, the only question there is, for what purpose?
Yes, I mean, you can assume it's to conquer the galaxy and everything with these unbeatable mummies and stuff, but at the same time, we don't know anything about Gus. We don't know who he is or who created him or anything like that. So there is that sort of question in the middle as well.
It strikes me that if they had, again, just put some hint of a storyline, why did he feel that he needed to stay alive? Even why did he justify staying alive? That he was a bodyguard to the Pharaoh, or they were attacking the Assyrians or something, and he had a specific job and he didn't finish. It's just basically the Flying Dutchman. There is a purpose that I did not fulfill, and therefore I cannot rest until I do so. And it's not magic that's keeping him alive. It's this tech that somehow got put into him somehow.
Yeah.
Now, again, that could have been explained with, well, there are the people who say that aliens helped the Egyptians build the pyramids. One line, just anything. Because other than that, it's a great story. Visually, it's great. It kept my interest. But the longer you think about it, it's more like there's no there.
Yeah, it almost feels like there needs to be another episode to really get into it. And I mean, the difference here is we normally, we watch like 4 episodes of classic Doctor Who at a time, each about 24 minutes long. This was only about 44 minutes, and that's great. 44-minute episodes, and contained stories are good, and we've had that with our other modern episodes that we've watched. But this one definitely feels like this could have been expanded on to really get into more of it.
And it strikes me that the perfect spot to do that is when he takes all of Maisie's memories or whatever, and that would be your cliffhanger on the first episode, is when the mummy starts advancing towards him because the mummy now thinks he's Maisie, and then you start the next episode with he's only coming to me because I've got all these memories. And I love that bit about oh wow, your grandmother really was a horrible person, you were right not to care for her. It's just just so that at some point we could say, just before he dies, not just before he dies, that we find out he's a soldier, but he's a soldier, he has a mission, he hasn't accomplished it, and now we have to figure out what that mission is and help him end it. And again, 2 44-minute episodes would have been a great episode length for this. To make the story compelling to us. Yeah.
And I don't think there were almost any two-parters in this season, which was different. They normally do 1 or 2 two-parters and then sort of a 2-part finale in each season. So yeah, this one, it's one of those where it's like, it's good and I wanted more, and that's weirdly the criticism of it. They say, "Oh, leave them wanting more," and it's like, oh yeah, but that's almost the criticism, is that we need more. Yeah. So, let's see. Well, we had a whole crew of different interesting characters, like Professor Morehouse. I did like him. I like how each of them, like what they do when they see the foretold. He starts to describe it scientifically, but then ends up trying to bargain with it, which was interesting. And the captain, what was the captain's name? Let me jump to a cast list over here. Captain Quell. Captain Quell was also interesting, just in the way he starts describing it, and then he does resort to the old soldier thing, who would I be if I died with bullets in my gun? Even though he knows it's not going to work, he has to at least try. Yeah. And then he keeps going with describing it for the doctor so that they can try to learn something. So I did like all of that. And yeah, just this idea of this sort of ancient mythological monster in space. Like I do kind of like that. I've had this idea for a show where it's like this gothic horror, monster hunting sort of show in space, and it just adds so it's this whole monster hunter thing, but then it's just weird, and it's like about a vampire in space and stuff like that. So
would you click on the singer? Because again, that girl looks...
Yeah, she definitely... No, it doesn't look like... She definitely... I know what you're saying, though. Yeah. She looks like the
editor of the local newspaper there in Superman and Lois.
Right, so... But, nope.
Now, when Clara communicates with Danny...
Yes.
Even when they're out in space, she has a phone that will connect to him?
Yes. So... that is the difference between watching Classic Who and watching this, is that the Doctor can update a cell phone, and they haven't fully explained how it works, but I think it's something that now their cell phones can connect to the TARDIS, which then sends that signal back in time. So, yeah, it's a whole thing, but you're right, probably... Because we don't see any of that in classic Doctor Who.
That data plan must be extraordinarily expensive.
Yeah, so yeah, let's see. We did get more use of the psychic paper in this. I always love when the Doctor just sort of says something vague and lets the psychic paper figure out who they're supposed to be. So he just goes up and is like, "Oh, I'm your worst nightmare." And it's like, "A mystery shopper." It's like, that's your... Okay, yes, that's exactly what I meant. I'm a mystery shopper. So, I did like that. Let's see. Now, the first time I watched this, I didn't realize that when Clara and Maisie are going through those files, that I thought it was originally stuff to figure out the foretold, but I only realize now that it's probably because I didn't have subtitles on back then, that it's more stuff about Gus and the previous experiments he's done. So the whole thing of, terminate the call and get back to work, suddenly that makes more sense to me now. So always good to do a second rewatch of things. So I say on your first watch of this.
Also, does Jenna... Now, she's got the boyfriend, obviously, but it strikes me that the underlying current here is that she probably had a thing for Matt Smith. Is that possible?
Yes, actually. Because she was only with Matt Smith for maybe, I want to say 11 episodes or so. Like, it was almost like half a season, actually. And there was this constant sort of joke that the Doctor had to pretend to be her boyfriend. And there was sort of this thing between them, which you did kind of get a lot with, and especially with the 10th Doctor. So with the younger Doctors, they did that. But they did sort of drop that a bit once we got to the 12th Doctor. So
because she still seems to have feelings for him from his incarnation as Matt Smith, and she's struggling to deal with that because Capaldi is not Matt Smith.
Yes.
She wants to like him, but finds it difficult because now he's not the same person.
Yeah.
I mean, that was very well played from what I was seeing from the episode.
Definitely. I mean, when he regenerated, it was very much like, okay, this is a different man. This isn't our, fun, goofy Dr. Matt Smith. Like, this guy is a lot more serious and a lot more, maybe a lot more sarcastic even, and he's very different. And I think early on, they do sort of question, is he a good man? And they're not quite sure anymore if he's a good man. Which... That's the interesting thing, like when they talk about, when he has Clara basically lie to Maisie to get her out there. And, yeah, it just seems like this incredibly cold, heartless thing. It's like, oh, well, of course she's going to die, but this is going to be how we learn more about the Foretold. If it happens in there, we're not going to learn anything. And that just seems so horrible. But then you get the whole thing of, well, he transfers his grief, or her grief, into him, and then tries to roll with that, but he couldn't let Gus know. So yeah, that's definitely a thing, kind of continually too with this Doctor, is the question of how much is he a good man or not.
Now, did Clara have this relationship with Danny before she went off with Matt Smith?
No, this Danny came in this season after the regeneration. So yeah, I think that they both work at Coal Hill schools. So I think that was it. They wanted to switch it up since the Doctor was no longer going to be sort of this strange sort of romance thing. So they brought in Danny. And I won't get too much into it, but Danny is not a very well-loved character within the fandom, so I completely forgot he was even in this episode. So, let's see. Well, we had the whole thing of the Foretold targeting the weak, which was interesting, and then figuring out who would be next and stuff. And then the whole thing of draining their energy as an almost vampire. I think there's a Tom Baker story that has vampires, and I think they are more traditional sort of fictional vampires, but also that I think that's the definition. Well, we also had, what was the one audio drama? Was it Damaged Goods, where it's like, he's like a weird energy vampire. That whole thing was confusing, but yeah. Let's see, and then the whole reveal that the Foretold is a soldier, which is interesting, because they do bring up early on that, there's the legend has it, if you say the right thing, the Foretold will disappear. It almost makes me wonder, maybe the Foretold is not just one thing. Maybe there have been a bunch of these soldiers, and some of them have been defeated, some of them haven't. It's just that this one was specifically dealt with by the Doctor.
Now, again, this is something that I would imagine 99.9% of audiences wouldn't understand. But if we take, at face value that this guy's a soldier, most soldiers, in fact, I wouldn't suspect any soldiers other than great leaders would have ever been mummified. All right, that was something that was reserved for the pharaohs and their families and the priests, but the average soldier would not have been mummified. That was only for the elite.
Yeah.
So, and that's why, again, just that little backstory of I was the bodyguard of the pharaoh. I was given a job that I was not able to complete, and I must wander the earth and the cosmos until I can complete that. And again, I understand that being a history major, I'm overthinking that, but that's what they pay us the big bucks for.
Yeah, that's true. It's definitely interesting because I do remember loving this episode the first time around, and I still do, honestly.
Yeah,
it's a great episode, but you're right. On second watch, I am noticing like one or two things where it's like, oh man, I wish there was more of this. Well, and especially, even the first time around, I was like, oh, okay, so who's Gus? Who created him and stuff like that. And then as the episodes go on, you just sort of sit back and it's like, wonder what that was about. I wonder if that's ever going to come back. And nope, I don't think it ever did. So it's just one of those strange things. There's occasionally Doctor Who will do that where they sort of drop, they just sort of drop a plot line, and they're like, "Are we ever going back to that?" I guess technically this was originally when they bring up the Mummy on the Orient Express, and then they don't do it for almost 3 complete seasons. Yeah. So, and then at the end we had the whole talk about the Doctor isn't heartless, although he did say he had no idea if he could have saved Maisie. It was still an incredible gamble to do that, but he thought it could work, and luckily it did. So
well, it's one of those, it's a horrible job, but somebody has to do it.
Yeah.
And it's better that I do it because I am better suited for, a lesser person, someone who was not the Doctor, couldn't have made those kind of choices. He says, I've been doing this for 2,000 years.
Yeah. So, I think in Capaldi's 3rd season, there's an episode early on, he has a new companion, and, someone dies, and he's not really, it doesn't really affect him, and he says, I'm 2,000 years old, and I don't have the luxury of outrage or being mournful. I have to just move on.
Yeah.
And that is definitely big here. So, but that's pretty much all I wrote down. You got anything else?
No. Again, overall enjoyable. The more you think about it, the less enjoyable it becomes. So
yeah, it's one of those. You wish you could overthink it and like keep going with it, but if you start to overthink it, some things start to fall out a bit. Yeah. So, but yeah, that is basically our introduction to the 12th Doctor here.
Yeah. I like it. He's good.
Yeah. Next time around, well, first off, next week, back to normal classic reactions, back with the 3rd Doctor. However, in, I think it's Season 9, Episode 2 is The Curse of Peladon, and that will be a rewatch, so we will be watching a 13th Doctor episode for that, and I'm sure half of you are excited, the other half are annoyed, but you'll get over it. I haven't locked down which episode we're going to be doing. I've got 4 or 5 episodes in mind. They're pretty much all of the 13th Doctor's historical episodes, and actual historicals, not like, like let's put the train in space. So, but I haven't figured out. I'm going to go back and forth with people on Twitter and see what would be the best one. But I've got one in mind that was honestly one of her best episodes. So, so we'll have to see then. Okay. But yeah, that is pretty much it. With all that being said, we're Alex and Dad from 7th Hour Films, and we will see you guys next time. Take care. Alright guys, thanks for watching this video. There's a bunch of links on screen if you want to go click around to any of those. There's a playlist for all of our modern Doctor Who reactions. All 6 of them now, I guess. There's also a playlist for all of our normal classic Doctor Who reactions. There's also a subscribe button and a Patreon button on screen, as well as other links in the description if you want to go check out any of those. See you guys later.